Tommy, first of all, when we started this thing roughly 8 months ago, we were broadcasting live from the NBA bubble in Orlando. And now I'm a Dallas Maverick.
Indeed.
Who could have predicted
how the world turns?
The turn of events. Before we get to any trade talk, we need to talk tacos. Tommy, you and I met in Bushwick yesterday for what I would consider to be a life-changing taco.
I would agree. Can you give a very brief backstory on how you found this place?
Yeah, so I saw, whether it was Infatuation or Eater, one of those food sites. They had an Instagram post some months ago about this place in Bushwick called Nene's Deli Taqueria. A little backstory on Nene's, first of all. So the proprietor and the chef, this guy, Andres Galindo Maria, he's 26 years old. He's worked in some of the fanciest of New York restaurants, I Fioria, Jean Georges restaurant. So he's been in some sort of elite kitchens. So he decides he wants to start his own thing, but he wants to start this small thing. And for anyone who's had burria, I don't even know how to say it, burria, whatever. It is basically beef or goat that is marinated in adobo and then stewed in broth. And this particular place specializes in quesadilla. So there's the tortilla shell, handmade, homemade tortilla shell. There's a layer of cheese inside of that. They dip the tortilla shell in the broth, in like the chili broth, and then they stack the meat and the onions and all that stuff.
Melted gooey cheese.
I mean, your first bite, it's right next to the Maria Hernandez Park. So you and I walked over to the park. We sat down. Your first bite, the look on your face, your reaction was insane.
Well, I think the other thing, just for the listener who doesn't necessarily know New York or Brooklyn geography well, is this is in Bushwick, which is not the most populous part of Brooklyn, and this place is in the back of what is in essence a bodega. It's sort of like maybe it's like a little bit larger than like a normal bodega, but it's certainly not a grocery store, and it's certainly not a storefront. So we even had trouble finding where to go, and there wasn't a line or anything like that. But it's life changing. You and I have both lived in Southern California. You've lived in Texas. We've had a lot of good tacos. I'm not making any hot statements, this close to when we ate it, because I want to think on it a little bit, but it's certainly up there for best tacos I've ever had in my life.
It's up there for me as well. It's definitely a top 5 taco. Definitely a top 5 taco. Potentially a top 5 to top 10 first bite, just flavor bomb that I've ever had.
And certainly a top 5, at least in the last year, meal that you can get for under $10.
The tacos were $3.
Yes, my taco, I had one taco, which was $3 because I'd eaten before. You had a quesadilla, a taco, 2 tacos, and an empanada?
No, I had one taco, half a quesadilla.
But you ordered all those things.
And an empanada, yes. But in fairness, I was coming off 2 workouts, and I hadn't eaten all day. So give me a break. Don't make it seem like I'm this gluttonous
I'm not saying
person.
You housed all of them. I'm saying you ordered those things, and it couldn't have been more than $12 for the entire meal.
No, it was great. It was great. Nene's Taqueria, Nene's Deli Taqueria. Follow them on Instagram. If you're in New York, if you happen to be in Brooklyn, go check them out. Amazing quesadilla tacos. Amazing. It kind of segues into this, because the only real thing in terms of flavor bomb that I've had recently in the last year or so that I can compare it to is Turkey and the Wolf. And now that I'm no longer a New Orleans Pelican, I have to mention Turkey and the Wolf. There's a lot of things, Tommy, that I will miss about New Orleans. First of all, amazing city. You and I talk about this all the time. It's one of the gems of the United States. It's an amazing place to live, an amazing place to visit. Great fans, incredible food, incredible culture. In the year and a half that I lived there, just the memories that I had, going to see a brass band play at a dive bar on a Monday night with Win Butler, Knox telling me that Mardi Gras 2020 was the best day of his life. Like it's going to have a special place in my memory. I also want to give some love to Dallas. There's a new spot, Mavs Twitter. You can calm the fuck down. There's one guy in particular. He's got one of those really long Instagram handles. He's tweeted like 17 times in the last 3 days. I'm like, you're obsessed, bro. First of all, guy, I'm rehabbing an injury, all right? I'm not in front of the press. Just this is coming out Wednesday. I have a Zoom with the Dallas press after practice in New York, set up for Thursday. Everybody calm down. I have a weekly podcast that generally comes out on Wednesday. We waited till the podcast. And also, I would say this, there's so much nuance that can get lost on Twitter. On making a statement on social media, there's no point in doing that, at least for me, if I have this platform.
100%. You get to speak in long form. You are one of the few people who can articulate all of your thoughts about all these things in a way that is not going to be summarized in a tweet or two. I will say, though, objectively, I'm not as familiar with the Dallas, fans as Jason, our video guy, is a huge Mavs fan is. They got a great fan base. Like they're ready. They're ready. Yeah. They're ready for you. They're excited about this. They're excited about Nico. Like they're hyped. It's a good sign.
When we met for tacos yesterday, you were like, "Bro, I think maybe you should put something out." Mavs Twitter. They're
just getting.
They're questioning what's going on
here.
They're
tagging me. I'm like, I can't help you. I don't have his Twitter password.
Oh man, that's great. No, but seriously, the Mavs situation. Really great. Obviously, huge respect for Mark and Rick and Donnie and what they've been able to build there in that franchise, and getting to play with two more transcendent young players. Having just been on the Pelicans with a bunch of those guys, and now getting a chance to play with Luka and KP, and obviously, they have a bunch of great guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jalen Brunson, Maxi Kleber, Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith. They got a deep team. I'm hoping to just add some leadership, add some shooting. Just an update. I will be with the team this week in New York. They're coming through. I've been testing every day. So the plan is to see them on Thursday, and I'll be at the game Friday in the Garden. Beyond that, I don't really have a firm timetable because I am still rehabbing my heel and my Achilles from my injection, and I've been on the court for 8 of the last 9 days doing work, and I feel like I'm progressing, but I'm probably a little bit of ways away from playing.
I have a Luka specific question for you, just for a second. You have now played, and obviously you have not played with Luka yet, but you will. But between Zion and Luka recently, but just going out throughout your career, you have played with a lot of the sort of young transcendent talents in the league. Is this just like a weird coincidence at this point that you sort of find yourself like you haven't had any duds? It's the NBA, everyone's good, you know what I mean? But like the idea that you would go from a team with Zion to a team with probably objectively the only other young, like very young player who's entered the league in the last 5 years, who is, at this sort of transcendent level, is got to be pretty exciting.
Well, let's not forget I was coming off Philadelphia playing with,
of course, with Joe and Ben.
Ben and Joe. Yeah. And I played with a young Dwight Howard. My rookie year was Dwight's third year. Blake and DJ were probably a little more established by the time I got there, but look, you look back on your career in 10 years, 20 years, and you're going to be like, oh, I got to play with, these Hall of Famers. And you certainly think that about, Zion and BI in terms of their potential and Luka as well, for sure. Tommy, it's always fun for, I think, NBA players to tell the story of how they found out they were traded. It's a frequently asked question that we get post-trade. So very simply, I was at Pilates. My wife recently got recertified to teach Pilates while simultaneously, she's an amazing woman, while simultaneously getting a real estate license here in New York. So on Thursday, I went and did a Pilates session with her, At 2:00, I had my phone off to the side. We did some mat work. At about 2:30, 2:33, I looked at my phone. There was nothing on my phone. I thought, oh, I'm in the clear here. Finished my mat work. I went over to the barrel to stretch, and Chelsea picked up her phone. She's like, why do I have 3 missed calls from your agent? And so I looked at my phone. I've got 3 missed calls from my agent. I've got a bunch of people texting me. I'm like, oh gosh, what's happening? So I call my agent. He tells me what's going on. I was shocked. I was floored. I was not expecting at that point to get traded. And again, this is not any sort of slight on the Dallas Mavericks, but the Dallas Mavericks weren't one of the teams at any point in time that we had discussed. And so I was just a little jarred by that. I called Mark after, and what I told Mark was, Cuban, of course, what I told Mark was, in any other year, I'd be thrilled to get traded to the Dallas Mavericks. It's one of the premier organizations. I think Rick is one of the best coaches. And as we just discussed, the opportunity to play with a guy like Luka and Kristaps, and we went down the line, all their guys, they got a great team. So it was just a little jarring. Tommy, you know this, and this is not public, but back in November, I made a trade request, and it wasn't my agent making the request. It was me. I had multiple very transparent conversations with Trajan Langdon and David Griffin. The impetus for this was my son, of course, had started kindergarten in Brooklyn back in September. We had no idea when the NBA season was going to start. The NBA sort of sprung this, we're starting Christmas Day, and simultaneously to that announcement, the Pelicans were trading Drew Holiday. Drew, of course, you know this, but Drew is the reason that I went to New Orleans. As much as I was excited to play with Zion, and I was excited about the young guys they had just gotten from the Lakers, and truthfully, the contract was the best contract that was offered to me in free agency. The real excitement for me was to play with Drew. One of the reasons, and I'll put Kenrich Williams in this category too, who we also traded. One of the reasons is because of Drew's defensive versatility. So he can guard multiple positions. And I knew going into the season with Stan that Stan is very much obsessed with matchups. You guard one guy on the court. And Drew and Kenrich were really 2 of our 3 versatile defensive players from the prior year. Josh Hart falls in that category too. He's really the only guy on our team that guards multiple positions this year. So I knew that this was really going to negatively affect sort of my playing time. I played for Stan, for 5 years prior in Orlando. I sort of knew that was coming. So I wanted to play with Drew. He was gone. The COVID protocols were in place, both with the NBA, making it almost impossible for me to return to New York at any point in time, although the team was nice enough to let me go back for 24 hours prior to our long West Coast trip in January. But then also my family couldn't come down unless it was a long break. So they came down once right before Christmas, right before the regular season started. But their school policy is you got to quarantine for a week. So if they come down for a weekend, they miss the next week of school. That's just how it works. Try telling a 4-year-old or 6-year-old, don't go into school on Monday and tell people that you went and saw your dad this weekend. It's damn near impossible. So I talked to Griff. I talked to Trajan. Griff basically says to me, come down for a month. If you still want to be traded, I give you my word. I'll get you to a situation that you like. We've had subsequently 4 conversations. Again, my agent talks to him, but I'm talking to Griff directly. That's how I wanted to handle this. Griff and I had a personal relationship. And obviously he did not honor his word. And again, that is not a slight on Dallas at all. My understanding, basically from February on, once I was not traded at the aggregate deadline on February 2nd, my understanding all along was that I was going to get a buyout. And if I was going to be traded, it was going to be to a team in the Northeast where I was closer to home and I'd be able to see my family for the last 2 or 3 months of the season. Obviously, that didn't happen. Geographically speaking, of course, Dallas is further away from New York than New Orleans. And look, one of the important things, because I know there is some backlash right now on the entire buyout situation, I think it's important, and again, this is why whenever I would talk to Griff, I would say this isn't personal towards you or the Pelicans. My love for New Orleans and my experience up till halfway through the season with the Pelicans was amazing. It was amazing. COVID has sort of upended a lot of people's lives in a much more negative way than it upended NBA players' lives. But there is an inconvenience to this season that we've talked about a number of times on this podcast, and we're all trying to make the best of it. So I look at the buyout situation not as me just specifically being like, oh, I'm going to get bought out and go to Brooklyn. I just wanted to be able on an off day to go see my family, and be within sort of driving distance. That was the whole goal. And whatever that looked like, I don't know what that was going to look like, but geographically you can sort of think of the teams where that's the case.
I have one question for you about this right now.
Yep.
Why should anybody... This feels like an honesty issue and it feels like an integrity issue. Why should anybody trust, when I say anybody, I mean any player, trust the word of this organization that they are going to treat them with honesty and integrity if, in this particular case, not only did it not happen in the last week, it hasn't happened for the last 5 months?
It's a good question. I don't think you're going to get honesty from that front office. Just objectively speaking, that's not an opinion. I just don't think you're going to get that. I don't think what happened with me is necessarily an isolated incident either. But I do think across the league, like front offices, they act in their own best interest. I get that. I understand that. I think, truthfully, and it's hard for me to admit this, but I think I was a little naive in thinking that because I was in year 15 and, I had at least attempted to do things right throughout my career, and I honored my end of the bargain. But, in terms of this front office, yeah, I mean, it's not something where I would expect certainly the agents that worked on this with me to ever trust that front office again. Again, Tommy, I just want to reiterate, though, this is not in any way a reflection of my feelings towards Dallas or the Dallas Mavericks. As we've talked about, it's a good basketball situation. And for someone that has not played basketball in over 3 weeks, I'm just excited to hopefully get healthy and be back on the court and hooping with those guys in Dallas. Again, I want to just say that I love New Orleans, and I've built some amazing relationships with the Pelicans. Miss Benson, Swin Cash, Alex Kaufman, Ramon Sessions, our guy Fred Vinson, who we always mention on the pod.
You got to keep shouting him out.
Yeah,
even though you're not there.
My guy D House, Matt Ryan, and Will McLaren from Communications. Will actually listens to the pod all the time. Nelly Tom and Stan Williams from the training staff. Big Shot and Jackson from the back room. And, of course, all my teammates. And I had a chance to reach out to pretty much all of them and talk with them after the trade. So excited for those guys' future and all of them, whether it's Nikhil or Brandon or Zion, Zoe, whoever, there's a bright future there. I'm excited to watch their careers. And let's get down to Dallas.